So I think the purpose is very clear. For next 3 days, we would have answer writing sessions. And when I say answer writing sessions, again, it's going to be subject specific, 1. 2, it's going to be composing of what is the mandatory aspect that has to be met in answer writing, such that I can score more when I'm writing an answer. Right? So the agenda is very clear for me that how can I increase my score when I'm writing an answer? Because one thing I would not definitely focus is, anyway all of you are good with your content. That is my inherent assumption when it comes to today's session. So my focus is not going to be on content, my focus is going to be on how can we snatch that extra 1 mark or 1.5 mark for certain papers. Now for next 3 days, I will be dealing with GS1 and GS3, the subjects of GS1 and GS3. Shilpa ma'am would deal with GS4 and ethics, and Ashish would deal with GS2, right? Ashish is a UPSC ranker, Shilpa ma'am is a UPSC ranker, right? And I don't have to introduce about myself, right? It's all known. Okay. So nothing much, directly getting into the session. Whenever we are writing an answer, there are certain important aspects that has to be kept in mind at any cost. First and foremost is identify the number of parts in the question. Many people would neglect this part, but please remember, if I have to maximize my score when I am writing an answer, this is the first and foremost thing that all of us will have to do. Identify number of parts in the question first. Now, depending upon number of parts, allocate the respective space to each part. Now, when I say allocate respective space to each part, the understanding is very clear again. For me, the allocation is proportionate. That means, if I am writing a 10 marker and if the question is having 3 parts and the space allocated to this is 2 pages, for each part I am going to apply how much? How much it is? I will have to allocate 2/3 of each page to the respective part. Now, why am I saying this? If it is a 10 marker having 3 parts, which means each part is having 3 marks any given day. So this component cannot be neglected in any answer writing per se, but most of us neglect because we don't pay attention to this number of parts. The second compulsory thing that has to be remembered here whenever I am talking about number of parts is I will have to derive my subheadings accordingly with each part. And when I say subheading should be derived accordingly for each part, the understanding is very clear again that subheading for each part should directly be drawn from the question. When I say this, it should be directly drawn from the question. Again, my understanding is very clear. I cannot randomly write my own subheadings or I cannot generate my own subheadings. When I am telling subheading in an answer, subheading has to be derived from the respective question. Respective question here means exact words and the verbatim has to be maintained. The logic here is very simple. Is that I am just making the examiner feel that I am writing what is being asked. I am maintaining my perception when it comes to the respective answer, so that I can maximize my score whenever I am writing these aspects. That is one more dimension which has to be compulsorily kept whenever you are writing an answer. The third aspect that you will have to remember whenever we are writing an answer is structure of the answer. Now when I say structure of the answer, most of you will say structure is nothing but IBC. Fantastic. IBC, that is intro, body and conclusion, no doubt. But for me, structuring is going to be more important in this particular aspect. And most of my structuring is going to be again derived from question. This is going to be called as my basic structure. Now I have something called as microstructure which is existing. Now when I say microstructure which is seen to be existing here, one thing that you definitely have to remember at any cost for this microstructure is what? The microstructure that can be remembered here is what kind of components that can be generated for that particular topic. I'll give you a simple example. For suppose, just imagine, I am writing a question on federalism. If I am writing a question on federalism, most of us will directly dump content, but my microstructure or my component analysis for federalism would definitely be what? I would write something like the legislative, executive, judicial, financial, institutional. Now that's going to be my microstructure whenever I am writing with respect to federalism. Now for suppose if I am writing something with respect to climate, right, some aspects with respect to climate. Now for example, if you remember 2021, there was one question which was asking about what is the impact of volcanism on respective regional climate was the question which was asked. Right? Now that was a question in 2021 which was a 15 marker. Now when I say what is the respective impact of volcanism on regional climate, all of us started dumping the answer. But what is going to be more component here is regional climate, what is the corresponding impact on temperature, what is the corresponding impact on rainfall, what is the corresponding impact on cloud formations, or what is going to be the corresponding impact with respect to the wind system which is seen to be existing, or what is going to be the corresponding impact with respect to the humidity aspect. So what is to be understood in this particular context is that whenever we are supposed to write an answer, I always say what is more important to me is the component analysis of that respective topic. And whenever I have that component of that respective topic, automatically my answer is going to be enhanced. So what is one belief here is, basic structure is talking about IBC, but what is going to be more important to me there is going to be how or what components am I going to derive from that particular aspect. That's one more aspect. So one is with respect to number of parts, the second is with respect to allocating the space, the third is with respect to how am I deriving my subheadings, the fourth is with respect to what is the kind of basic structure that I am following, fifth is with respect to microstructure. Now why am I emphasizing upon all of these aspects is that all these are the mandatory components of answer writing any given day. Now this is irrespective whether you are writing an answer on UPSC or whether you are writing answer in TGPSC or whether you are writing answer in ABPSC or whether you are writing answer in Arunachal Pradesh Public Service Commission or Bihar Public Service Commission. Doesn't matter to me, for me the structure is the same. One. The second aspect that you will have to remember here is that how am I going to maintain my relevance of writing an answer? Now when I say how am I going to maintain my relevance of writing an answer, again the understanding is very clear here. I will definitely have to see what is the theme, what is the dimension, what is the context. Now please remember, whenever I am writing an answer, I cannot blindly dump my content because it is answer writing and you know we are used to graduation answer writing. What do we do in graduation? తెలిసినా తెలియకపోయినా తెలిసినట్టు రాసేవాళ్ళం ఒకటి. ఇంకొకటి ఏంటి, తెలిసిన 3 లైన్లు 30 పేజీలు నింపేవాళ్ళం 2. మూడోది ఏంటి, ఏం అడిగినా అదే రాసేవాళ్ళం, రైట్? దట్ ఈస్ అవర్ హిస్టరీ, దట్ ఈస్ అవర్ టాలెంట్ ఎనీ గివెన్ డే. But when it comes to be it APPSC or be it TGPSC or per se UPSC, you cannot follow that particular aspect any given day. In that context, relevance is important. Now, how am I going to maintain relevance whenever I am writing an answer? Now, when I am talking about how am I going to maintain relevance with respect to this, first I will have to identify the theme of the question. Now, for suppose, let's take some sample question and accordingly we would look into how can we identify those themes and respective aspects. Now, for suppose I am picking up GS1 2025 paper, right? Now there is one question here. If you want, you can just write down so that we can break down that particular aspect. How are climate change and sea level rise, how are climate change and sea level rise affecting the very existence of many island nations, Put a question mark there. Discuss with examples. Right? Now, first suppose if they give you this question. Now, what is the theme of this question? The theme of this question you have to understand is islands. That is the central theme of this particular question, islands, because it is asking about what is the corresponding impact of climate change on island nations. So, islands is the theme. What is the dimension that they are trying to put? The dimension that they are bringing in here is the corresponding impact on island nations. So dimension that they are asking here is what is the corresponding impact on island nations. But in what context are they asking? The context to this impact is being questioned with respect to climate change and sea level rise. So, whenever I am breaking down my question to maintain relevance, because please remember, my dear, answer writing is not about dumping content. One, answer writing is not writing some answer, but answer writing is writing to the asked question in the according manner. That's the second aspect that you will have to remember, because if you have to sail through mains examination, it is not filling pages. It is not making your paper dirty. It is more importantly in what way am I going to address the asked question in the respective manner it is supposed to be done. Unless and until I do that, this is not going to happen. That's very clear from the side of mains examination, and my experience speaks volume when it comes to clearing mains examination at any cost. Now, so in this question, theme is island, dimension is impact, context is climate change and sea level rise. Now, one question might arise among all of you is, sir, why are you dividing any question into these aspects? The context is very clear. The theme is going to lead my introduction. The theme is going to lead my introduction. My introduction for this question will depend upon what is my theme. Not only this question, any question that I am trying to address will fundamentally depend upon the theme. My structuring will depend upon dimension. Dimension will determine my structure. And what is my context going to determine? The context is going to determine the substantiation and the respective analysis. Now I can simply start writing what is the corresponding impact on island nations irrespective of reference to climate change or sea level rise. But we are not doing that at any cost, because I'm going to miss the relevance of the question. So if I have to maintain the relevance, I will definitely have to stick to this dimension. Theme, introduction. So my introduction is going to be what? I can talk about some island nation. A classic example is, Indonesia has shifted its capital from Jakarta to Kalimantan, stating that Jakarta is going to submerge. I can simply say that could be the introduction that I can bring in. So my introduction is centered around island nation. One. My impact here is going to be with respect to what? Impact is going to be what? One structure that I can definitely follow would be pestle. That is, or pestle, or we can also say staple approach. The socio-economic impact, the respective administrative impact, political, economic, the basic GS syllabus you can bring in. If not that, I can talk about majorly the geographical impact, environmental impact, and the socio-economic impact to a larger extent. I can discuss about those dimensions when I am talking about this impact. In what context again? Climate change and sea level rise. Right? Now, if I have to tell you similar thing for some other question just to make you understand even more better, for suppose just write down one more question. We'll see. Explain briefly the ecological and economic benefits. The ecological and economic benefits of solar energy generation in India. With suitable examples. Yes, that's the question again. Now, just take 1 minute and do this for that question, then I will validate. Take 1 minute and try doing that, and later I would validate upon that aspect. Time అయిపోయిందమ్మా. Yes. Chesara? Right? No rocket science in that again. When you look at this question, the theme here is what? Solar energy. Perfect. What is the dimension of solar energy? They are asking about benefits. Especially what benefits? Ecological and economic benefits. What is the third dimension? What is the context of this? The context here is not the world, my dear, it is India. Is this clear? Now when I have this clarity, what is going to happen? My answer is going to stick relevant to whatever is the corresponding asked question. Now when I have that relevance, automatically my answer is going to be beautifully drafted. Now let us go one more step ahead. I told you one aspect of the understanding today is what? One aspect of today is what? Number of parts, 1. Allocating the space, 2. Subheadings, 3. Structuring. In structuring, basic structure is IBC, that is intro, body and conclusion. Some of you might ask me that, sir, constitution lo ekkada rasundi that introduction rayali, body rayali, conclusion rayali. It's not written in constitution, but people have written it. So it's a silent demand from the side of the examiner. We introduce, we have some body and we have some conclusion. Then components, 5, 6, relevance. Now let's try applying all of this to this particular question. Right? Now when you look at this particular question, what are they asking? So in this, my introduction is going to be what? Depending upon solar energy with respect to what? India. Now my basic introduction could have been what? I can talk about what is the energy potential, I can say India has a potential of over 750 gigawatts. I can simply say India has a potential of over 750 gigawatts. Why? Because we have 300 sunny days per year. It is contextualized to India because India is a tropical nation. And when India is a tropical nation, it is very definite that we have 300 days of sun being present overhead. And in that particular context, I can simply introduce by saying 750 gigawatts of solar energy is the potential because of 300 sunny days present in India. In bracket, if I want to add some masala, what will I do? I will simply write according to SECI. Overaction ante. రైట్, దానివల్ల నాకేదో అయిపోద్ది లేదా ఎగ్జామినర్ ఇంప్రెస్ అయిపోయి కూతురునో కొడుకునో పెళ్లి చేసుకోవడానికి ఇచ్చేస్తాడు అన్నది కాదు. కానీ ఫండమెంటలీ వాట్ ఈస్ అబ్జర్వ్డ్ అట్ దట్ పర్టికులర్ పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్ ఐఎమ్ గోయింగ్ టు బ్రింగ్ ఇన్ authenticity when I'm writing my intro first. Now slowly coming to the body of this answer, how many parts in the question? How many parts in this question? Right? How many parts? They are asking you about ecological benefits and they are asking you about economic benefits. And then straight away, how will I bring in the subject here? My introduction is going to be benefits of solar energy. A, ecological benefits. ఎందుకంటే ఎగ్జామినరే నాకు క్లూ ఇచ్చాడు what should be my structure. Now depending upon what is the context or what is the structure that has been put in here, I am subdividing my body into what? Ecological benefits. Now I will write some points. B, economic benefits. Yes. And then I already told you, I started my sessions talking about that my focus is never on content today. My focus is only on answer writing today because for some reason there is a lot of bogus understanding that is going on with respect to answer writing outside. And answer writing ante edo oka magic laga అయిపోయింది. And I feel that is unnecessary. It's basic algorithmic procedural approach. If you have a beautiful answer manifesting at any cost, right? So what is going to be my B, economic benefits? Again some points 1 2 3 4 తోచింది రాస్తా. ఇంకొంచెం అతి చేయాలనుకో, if I want to do something extra, right? Now somebody like me will definitely do it. What will I do? See, other benefits. Now why am I doing this overaction here? Now you might say that sir, examiner has asked me only 2 dimensions, but why are you putting this dimension? I am just making the examiner know that I know other benefits also, you better give me marks. ఇస్తే మంచిగా ఉంటుంది, ఇవ్వకపోతే నేను ఎదురు వచ్చినా నీకే రిస్క్, నువ్వు ఎదురు వచ్చినా నీకే రిస్క్ అన్నట్టు. ఐఎమ్ ఫండమెంటలీ పుట్టింగ్ ఇన్ ఎ కాంటెక్స్ట్ సేయింగ్ దట్ అరే బాబు, ఎకాలజికల్ బెనిఫిట్స్ ఆర్ దేర్, economic benefits are there, but there are also other benefits. Other benefits could include what? Majorly the context with respect to some social or some international or some diplomatic. Unnayamma diplomatic benefits? Tell me one example for diplomatic benefits. I can say international solar alliance, IAS. You would have heard about one sun, one world, one grid. That's all about what? Diplomatic benefits. I'll just write 2 points. I'm writing 4 points here. I'm writing 2 points here just to tell the examiner that there are other benefits also. Yes. Now will I leave this answer like this? No. నేను ఆల్రెడీ చెప్పాను, దీన్ని నేను వదలను. ఒకటేంటి, my intro is clear. in my body, the parts I have put is ecological, economic and other benefits, right? I need to do something extra. Kada? What is that extra? Now, I can say all of this has some value to my answer. What is the next thing that I will have to do? I will have to do something called as value addition. Many people have again created so much of hype with respect to this value addition per se, that people started replacing basic content with value addition. Now that is never going to be the game at any cost. If I have to score bare minimum of 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, I need my basic content to be very strong. Depending upon my basic content one, I need to add some value. And what is the worth of value addition in any answer? It is 1 mark. Now tell me some kinds of value addition that I can do. Either no. Solar panel gimmantava. Government schemes. Nenu government schemes vere chotuki ettipettukunna. I have preserved that. Chalane daachadu. Right? Any other? Subsidies. Okay. I can summa draw map. What is my map, my dear? What is my map going to show? Yes. And I am going to name them as what? Solar energy hotspots. Ante kada. నాకు సోలార్ ఎనర్జీ కావాలి. ఏం కావాలి? సోలార్ కావాలి. ఎక్కడుంది? ఖచ్చితంగా ట్రాపికల్ రీజియన్లో అయితే ఉంటుంది. And if you look at the distribution and the prevalence, majorly Rajasthan, Gujarat, AP, Telangana, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, these are the regions which are prominently known for solar energy, because most of these states are present where? In the tropical region. I know Tropic of Cancer passing through India, and all of those regions below Tropic of Cancer can definitely be considered as tropics. And these would definitely have more potential for solar energy. So I can simply represent a map showing the solar energy potential, solar energy hotspots, or solar energy producing states. I can bring in that aspect. So that's going to be my simple value addition. Now, will I leave this answer here? No. Why? I know that definitely what has happened, my dear, the context here is with respect to India. Now when the context here is with respect to India, my understanding is very clear. I will just add measures taken. Enduku? Ekkada measures taken? India. Something like National Solar Mission, NSM, ఒకటి, or something like ISA, or something like subsidies for rooftop, or something like that you see PM Kusum. ఇవన్నీ ఏంటి? measures taken by the Indian government for promoting what we did, for promoting solar energy. That I can do. Yes. Should I leave it here? No. I will have to conclude. What's going to be my conclusion? I can either conclude this answer by using Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 7 or 6? 7. Because 6 is water and sanitation, so SDG 7 is energy. 1 is SDG. The other one is I can talk about the target of India with respect to carbon neutrality by 2070. I can do that. No sir, I want to bring in some keywords from the reports. If I have to bring in some keywords from the reports, I can talk about solar energy would enable me to decarbonize the energy sector of India. This is the exact line which is present in Niti Aayog report. So I can bring in that solar energy is going to decarbonize my energy sector. I can have any of these three conclusions. Now question was very simple, but my answer is compact and comprehensive. What ఏం అడిగాడు సింపుల్గా, అరే బాబు దాని ఎకలాజికల్ ఎకానమిక్ బెనిఫిట్స్ చెప్పు. మీరు ఏం చేసిండే వాళ్ళు అలా క్వశ్చన్ చూడగానే ఎగ్జైట్ అయిపోయి, ఓహో మనకు తెలిసిన క్వశ్చన్ ఒకటో రెండో అంటే అందులో ఇదొకటి and start writing. But what is the difference between your answer and my answer? Structure, value addition, right? Your answer was like Ram Gopal Varma's movie and my answer is like Rajmouli's movie. రెండింటికి డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటి? రామ్ గోపాల్ వర్మ సినిమాలో ఏదో నడుస్తుంది కానీ ఏం నడుస్తుందో తెలియదు, రైట్? సడన్గా చీకటి అయింది, సడన్గా లైట్లు అయింది, దయ్యం వస్తుంది, పోద్ది, ఐస్ క్రీమ్ తింటుంటారు, ఎందుకు తింటుంటారో తెలియదు. బట్ రాజమౌళి సినిమా హీరో ఎప్పుడు రావాలి, హీరోయిన్ ఎప్పుడు రావాలి, విలన్ ఎప్పుడు రావాలి, ఎప్పుడు పాటలు రావాలి, ఎప్పుడు ఇద్దరు కలవాలి, ఎప్పుడు కొట్టుకోవాలి, ఎప్పుడు చచ్చిపోవాలి, అన్నీ ఉంటాయి. Exact way of writing an answer is that only. I have my necessary components positioned at right place. That is what is going to take an advantage when it comes to answer writing, and the reason for me to clear mains examination constantly was this one. Constantly was this only, that you maintain. Did you see some content that I have written which you don't know? No. Normal serious aspirant కి తెలిసిన కంటెంట్ తోనే నేను ఆన్సర్ రాశాను. I have not written some bombastic content with respect to my answer. So what is the fundamentals of answer writing is: 1, number of parts, structure, respective value addition, 4, conclusion. Now with this, start off with respect to the answer writing session for today. I will tell you what all components to be put in for each subject of this particular papers. Now first, starting off with most of your favorite subject, history, right? Kada. History is not your favorite? No? Favorite, right? Now when you look at this subject, for me personally it is mystery. నాకు ఎప్పుడు అర్థమయ్యేది కాదు. ఏదో రాసాం, దాటేసాం, సర్వీస్ వచ్చేసింది, అయిపోయాయి అన్నీ. అది రైట్, కొన్ని వాటి గురించి మాట్లాడుకోకపోవడమే మంచిది. బట్ అదర్వైజ్ వాట్ ఈస్ ఎ బెటర్ వే ఆఫ్ మేనేజింగ్ హిస్టరీ వెన్ ఇట్ కమ్స్ టు రైటింగ్ అన్ ఆన్సర్? One component any given day that you will have to remember here is timeline. Especially timeline is very important when it comes to ancient, medieval, art and culture. I call them as AMAC. Ancient, medieval, art and culture, I definitely need a timeline. Timeline ante entamma, now when I say Vijayanagara, your timeline has to be ready. Right? Or when I say Mughals, now don't demarcate later Mughals, early Mughals, till Aurangzeb. Antoddu, I would say have a rough timeline for important kingdoms. For something like Shatavahana, compulsory you have. For something like Maurya you have. For something like Gupta you have. Right? I mean, if you want to remember for Kakatiya, but we don't see much of the presence being there. You remember for Mughals, you remember for the Delhi Sultanates. Now these you kindly keep your timelines ready. 1. The second important aspect here is the necessary substantiation using sources. For me, sources here could be either sourced from paintings, either sourced from some literature, or either sourced from some archaeological evidence, or either sourced from some inscriptions. Now for suppose if you say Shatavahana, definitely the inscriptions which have to be put in your answer is what, my dear? Nasik inscription and Nanaghat inscription. Now, for suppose if you are talking about Kakatiya, definitely Motopalli inscription has to come into the picture, right? So, any given day, I need to have my sources ready. Now, should I go and read all of those sources? Not required. Just remember which kingdom, which aspect is having these sources, the second component. The third aspect that you need to remember whenever you are talking about history is kindly ensure the real-time examples. Now, when I say these real-time examples, one thing is very clear. This is very, very important in the context of art and culture. Now, for suppose if there is a question on painting, and if there is a question on painting, you might be writing the characteristic features of painting. Fantastic. But when you are writing the characteristic features of painting, I should be able to substantiate different components of painting with respective examples. For suppose if I say the paintings were focusing on the natural aspects. For example, Manjusha painting representing the portraits of snake. Or I would say they were using different metals. For example, Tanjore painting with gold foil. They were talking about natural colors. For example, Kishangarhi painting, Bani Thani. Now what am I telling here, that whatever you are writing here should be substantiated with examples. Now you don't get these examples outside, it is again from your basic reading. Basic NCERT reading should suffice for these examples when it comes to history. Now one different style of writing, now one more thing that you remember, whenever I am concluding my answer with respect to history, I would always say bring in some recent events. See, this would apply even for introduction in history. Now, for suppose suddenly if I am writing something on, say, Chola Empire, right? I think in 24 or 25 we had a question on Chola Empire. Now, in that particular context, what are we supposed to do? You are supposed to write the Sengol, the context of Sengol, right? Now, bring in that context and put either in introduction or put either in conclusion. That can be brought in with respect to history. Very, very important when it comes to art and culture, ancient and medieval. One. The second component in history that you have is with respect to modern. Now, when we look at modern, please be very clear. I know whole of my modern is dependent upon various events. And any event will have what? It will have a course of event, it will have some causes, it will have some consequences, and more importantly, it will have some contributions. I keep telling, for modern, it is always the 4C approach which we will have to follow when we are writing an answer. Per se, if they are asking something on tribal movements, per se, if they are asking something on socio-religious movements, per se, they are asking upon, say, INM, that is Indian National Movement. If they are asking about the period of 1940 to 47 or quit India, anything in modern, after 1857, we see that it can, any part of it will definitely have some course. That means, how did it go on? Cause, what was the major reason? Consequences, the corresponding impact, and contributions. Now, when I say contributions, these are mostly with respect to the stakeholders in that particular event. And these are mostly with respect to the leaders in that particular event. Because one common thing that you can observe is, any event which has been existing in the modern will definitely have some leader to be leading that particular event. And when I say a leader is leading that particular event, it will have some contribution on his behalf or on her behalf that has to be mentioned. So ensure that you write this. And the same thing should also apply with respect to modern. My intro and conclusion should come from the recent aspects. The intro and conclusion should come from the recent aspects. Right? So remember that this is one aspect that we follow whenever we are writing history. Right? Next. Now, when we are writing on geography per se, if you are writing a question on geography, Again, one thing is very important when we are writing for geography. Try to bring in the conceptual explanation whenever you are writing geography. ఎందుకంటే geography, economy, all of these subjects are extremely conceptual in nature. And those are not something which I start writing randomly. I will have to bring in the conceptual clarity wherever it is possible when it comes to geography, one. The second aspect is, please do not abstain from drawing maps. Right? Now, sir, నాకు ఈ మ్యాప్లు ఎక్కడ దొరుకుతాయి? దొరకవు, సృష్టించు అంతే. Now, creating a map is an art. I'll tell you, for suppose I still remember this was a question in I think 2019 or 2021. They were asking what is the impact of biotechnology on livestock. GS3 లో క్వశ్చన్, రైట్? మీరంతా ఏం చేస్తారు? జెనెటిక్ ఇంజనీరింగ్ చేసి దానికి కావాల్సిన ఇంపాక్ట్ అంతా చూపిస్తారు, బాగానే ఉంది, రైట్? బట్ సంబడీ లైక్ మీ, వాట్ వీ విల్ రైట్ దిస్ బేసిక్, బట్ మనకి ఎక్కడో కొంచెం అతి చేయాలనిపిస్తుంటుంది, రైట్? అతి చేస్తేనే క్లియర్ అయ్యిద్ది, లేకపోతే అవ్వదు. ఐఎమ్ బీయింగ్ వెరీ ఓపెన్ విత్ ఆల్ ఆఫ్ యూ, మై డియర్. ఎక్కడో చోట దట్ ఐ విల్ నాట్ సే వావ్ ఫ్యాక్టర్, బట్ ఐ విల్ సే అరే కరెక్టే కదా, ఆ ఫ్యాక్టర్ తీసుకురావాలి. వై? బికాస్ ఎగ్జామినర్ ఈస్ బిజీ ఎవాల్యుయేటింగ్ 10,000 కాపీస్. And in those 10,000 copies, how do you expect the examiner is going to be impressed with your content? One, I will write basic content. Two, here and there I will make the examiner smile. Attani oke eddu geestarante kashtamayindi. Now what I have done, simply draw a map. అసలు బయోటెక్నాలజీ క్వశ్చన్లో ఎవరు మ్యాప్ గురించి ఊహించం కూడా ఊహించడు, బట్ నేను గీస్తా, రైట్? నౌ what map will I draw there? I will simply say poultry, camel, yak, piggery, goat and sheep. తప్ప కాదు, కరెక్టా తెలీదు. తప్పు కాదు, కరెక్టా తెలీదు. మార్కులు పడతాయా? తెలీదు. పోతాయా? పోవు. మార్కులు పోనప్పుడు నేనేమైనా చేస్తాను, అండ్ మార్కుల కోసం నేనేమైనా చేస్తాను. దట్ ఈస్ మై యాటిట్యూడ్ వెన్ ఐఎమ్ రైటింగ్ మెయిన్స్ ఎగ్జామినేషన్. బెగ్, బారో, స్టీల్ ఫ్రమ్ ది ఎగ్జామినర్. ఇఫ్ ఇట్ సేస్ బెగ్, లైక్ అయ్యా ఒకటే, ఐ విల్. ఇఫ్ ఐ హ్యావ్ టు స్టీల్, స్నాచ్ అండ్ గో. ఫైనల్లీ అల్టిమేట్ ఆబ్జెక్టివ్ ఏంటి? క్లియర్ అయిందా లేదా, అంతే. హౌ am I getting, now what am I doing in my paper, only I know and examiner knows. Unless until I come out and tell, nobody else will know, kada? So why should we fear? Now is it relevant? Now by looking at this, don't you think examiner will be like, correct కదా, గీయచ్చు కదా, వేరే వాళ్ళు ఎందుకు గీయలేదు, పోనీ వీడి గీసాడు, పో తీసుకోపో. Now this less one in every question will give me how much extra? 20 marks extra. 20 marks extra in one paper, and like that 4 papers, it is how much? 80 marks. And plus 1 is not required, my dear. I will say plus 0.5 into 20 is like 10, 10 into 4 is like how much? 40. నా బిజినెస్ అంతా 40 మీదే ఉంటుంది. నాకు తెలుసు, రెస్ట్ బేసిక్ కంటెంట్ I can manage. Because if you are writing means, it means you have cleared prelims. If you have cleared prelims, fundamentally means you have some basic knowledge. Are you understanding this dimension? So one aspect that you will have to remember at any cost in the context of geography is maps. And I would say every question having a map, no harm. There is no harm in every question having a map. I showed you solar energy. Now can I draw a map for the same question on islands? I can draw. Now how much time will it take? అంతే. నాకు ఇందులో ఏం కనిపిస్తున్నాయి? నార్త్ అమెరికా కనిపిస్తుంది, ఇది సెంట్రల్ అమెరికా నువ్వు అనుకో, ఇది సౌత్ అమెరికా, ఇది గ్రీన్లాండ్. అది ఎందుకు క్లియర్గా గీసానంటే దట్స్ మై ఫేవరెట్ ప్లేస్. Because Donald Trump was also having some eyes on Greenland, so I ensured I draw it well. Africa, ఇది ఆఫ్రికా అని ప్రూఫ్ ఏంటి? హార్న్ ఆఫ్ ఆఫ్రికా ఉంది, ఆ హార్న్ ఉంటుంది చూడు. Now please understand, I am teaching you one very very important aspect, the art of approximation. నాకు పర్ఫెక్ట్ మ్యాప్ అక్కర్లేదు, మ్యాప్ అవసరం. I don't have to have a perfect map, but I need map. Because I know we are not being tested for painting job. We are being tested for administration. And administration is all about what, material? Administration is all about approximation. Do I need exact data or approximate data will also do? Approximate data also will do. Now I would say approximately 750 gigawatts is the potential of solar. What is the exact figure? The exact figure is 783. That is the exact figure. But will I remember that exact figure in the exam hall? No, I would say art of approximation will enable you to take risk when you are writing an answer. So ensure one thing to be very very clear, maps have to be drawn in geography at any cost. What is the other component here? Examples. Examples whenever we are talking about those questions related to physiography, those questions related to economic and human geography. Economic and human geography, I would definitely need to have examples. When I say examples, real time examples will have to be substantiated when you are writing this. Another aspect that you need to remember here is, ensure that you will have to bring in the linkage with the socio-economic as well as the disaster aspects. Any question in geography will definitely or should definitely need to have a linkage with socio-economic aspect and disasters. ఎందుకంటే నాకు geography తెలిస్తే తప్ప డిజాస్టర్ అర్థం కాదు. So that interlinkage should have to be brought in with respect to this dimension. Now one more aspect that you will have to remember is, if I have to bring in dynamism in geography, please link it with climate change. If I have to bring in dynamism in geography, please link it with climate change at any cost. Right? For suppose if I am writing something on solar energy, don't you think I can also bring in the perspective of climate change in solar energy? Yes. Why? Because I can see extreme weather events and the solar cell efficiency being affected, because of which I will have to take necessary mitigation measures that I can bring in. So if I have to bring in a dynamic aspect, link it with climate change. This is with respect to geography. Now here and there, especially in economic geography and human geography, please add data. Please add data. Now when I say data, now data is going to differentiate your answer again. Now just imagine, agricultural productivity is declining. This is a statement, right? Or I can simply say the average productivity has reduced from 4% to 2.3%. Which is having more weight? The second argument is having more weight. Now you would say there is distress agriculture which is existing in India, or agrarian distress is prevalent in India. I would say agrarian distress, for example, the average income is 10,600 with respect to the farmer. What is happening? I am substantiating whenever I am writing. Right? For suppose if they say that a cereal centric agriculture is prominent in India, fine. But how am I going to substantiate this particular part? Cereal centric agriculture is prominent in India. For example, 330 million metric tons of production of food grains in India. What is the difference? Somebody writing an argument, but I am not only writing an argument, but along with this argument I am substantiating my argument, which is going to bring in weightage to my argument, right? Now when I was telling a normal point, you were normally listening to me. When I suddenly started adding data, you were like, You brought in that expression, నీకే అనిపించినప్పుడు ఎగ్జామినర్కి ఇంకేమనిపించాలి, రైట్? సో please understand that I will have to bring in data whenever I am writing for economic and human geography. That is with respect to geography. Now what am I going to do when I am writing on society? One thing is very clear again. Please use syllabus when you are writing society. Now when I say use syllabus when you are writing society, I am being very specific here again, that is going to provide some structure and that is going to enhance my understanding. One. The second thing that you need to remember with respect to society is write keywords. Now for example, you say that women are restricted to certain sections of or certain employment opportunities, or women have limited employment opportunities. Baane undi point, nen baaledannu. But if I simply say gender stereotyping of employment sector, I can write that gender stereotyping of employment sector, for example pink collar jobs. Ardhamavutundamma difference, right? For I would say that women in rural India are experiencing poverty. Beautiful. But I can also simply write feminization of poverty. Feminization of poverty. Now what does that mean? That means female as a section of the society is seen to be experiencing poverty in India. Now what is the difference? Keywords. Now what is my keyword going to do? My keyword fundamentally brings in professionalism whenever I am writing an answer. There are a few subjects like that where you will have to bring in this professionalism. One is polity, the other one is governance, the third one is society, the fourth one is ethics. When I am writing ethics, when I am writing society, when I am writing governance, when I am writing polity, I need to bring in this professionalism. If I don't bring in this professionalism, then there is a problem with respect to evaluation. So when I am writing this, keywords is one more. The third aspect is again examples. Now if I remember, in 2023 mains examination there was one question with respect to the changing trends of marriage or degenerating of marriage as an institution. Now మనం ఏం రాస్తాం? ఆ మ్యారేజ్ వద్దు, మ్యారేజ్ బాగాలేదు, మ్యారేజ్ మనం రెడీగా లేము, ఇప్పుడు మా వాళ్ళు చేసుకోము అంటున్నారు, అయినా మేము చేసుకోము, మాకొద్దు, ఇప్పుడు చేసుకుంటే చైల్డ్ మ్యారేజ్ అయ్యిద్ది. ఈ లోపల ఈ భావోద్వేగం అంతా నడుస్తుంటుంది, బాగానే ఉంటుంది. బట్ వెన్ ఐఎమ్ రైటింగ్ మై ఆన్సర్ ఐ నీడ్ టు అగైన్ సబ్స్టాన్షియేట్ విత్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్. Now when I say trends or changing trends in Indian marriage system, what can I see, my dear? I can see some dynamism, I can see some degeneration. Kada rendu jarugutunnayi marriage system lo. Degeneration, what's happening, my dear? People losing faith on marriage, so we see growth of live-in relationships. Sir, ee padam vaadacha paapam kada? We are all going to be administrators, my dear. No bias. We have to have an objective understanding when we are writing, and when Supreme Court itself could use it, you and me are subjected to the rules of the highest court of the land, right? So live-in relationship or extramarital affairs, that is what is degenerating my marriage as an institution. Why? Because now when you look at both of these concepts, these are seen to be emerging from a phenomena called as liquid love. Or phenomena untadi, liquid love, right? What is that liquid love? Love flows like liquid till it finds its true love. అంటే సింపుల్గా చెప్పాలంటే ఆ సినిమాలో ఉంటుంది చూడు, పోయేదేముంది డూడ్, తిరిగి మళ్ళీ ప్రేమిస్తారు. ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ ద సేమ్, right? Zygmunt Bauman is a sociologist who has given this particular phenomena called as liquid love, right? Now I can talk about that. What other degenerations are happening? I can see the increasing rates of divorce. Divorce rate is increasing. Now if you want to put some data, you can put. Now don't write your friends examples and all here. For example, my friend had a bad divorce recently, I am trying. No, Don't do that. Now when I'm talking about dynamism, what do I see? The biggest dynamism is what? Intercaste marriages. Right? జరుగుతున్నా జరిగితే బాగుండు అనిపించే వాళ్ళు చాలా మంది ఉంటారు నాకు తెలుసు. Right? But I understand that is one dynamism which has been brought into the Indian society. Apart from that, we also see another dynamism that is seen to be talking about is same-sex marriage. Yes. Now same-sex marriage is a phenomenon which is seen to be emerging again after decriminalization of section 377. Is it legal? No. Marriage is not legal still. Right? Consensual sexual relationship is legal. But marriage is not legal. What is the other aspect that you can write with respect to dynamism? I can say from caste it has shifted to class based. Right? Repuddin meer service lo keltaru. Right? Whom will you marry? Do you think you will marry some normal people? No. Right? Minimum politician. లేదా worst case scenario IAS. ఇంకా అంతకన్నా తక్కువ వెళ్ళాలంటే ఓకే యూ విల్ అడ్జస్ట్ విత్ సమ్ గ్రూప్ 1 ఆఫీసర్. అంతే. Why it is class based? It is not caste based anymore. Today we are looking at the economic status, we are looking at the power status in the context of marriages. Now why am I telling you this example here is that whenever I am writing society, staying close to the real time dynamism is very, very important when it comes to writing society. And I should be able to substantiate that with necessary examples. Now what is the fourth aspect in society? This is very relevant in society. Expression. Now if you somewhere deviate your expression, because society is one such subject where some polarization part of your life will be coming out. So in that particular aspect, kindly suppress those polarizations being expressed in the answer and kindly maintain something called as a neutral expression when you are writing society. So whenever I am talking about society, any given day syllabus plays a key role. Keywords, examples, and more importantly, neutral expression. And any given day I will have to substantiate this with data. Any given day I will have to substantiate this with data. So with respect to GS1, this is what is the basic understanding. Now if I shift to some subject like economy, now again this is one such subject which is demanding conceptual clarity. What is the second in priority when I am writing an answer on economy is data. నాకు డేటా లేనిది ఆన్సర్ కనపడకూడదు in economy. You cannot write an answer in economy without data. Be very, very clear with that. Now when I say that, if I am writing a 10 marker, please ensure you put in at least 6 data points. And if I am writing a 15 marker, please ensure that you are putting in 8 to 9 data points in the question. Volume of data has to be in abundance when I am writing economy. నాకు ఎకానమీలో నంబర్లు కనిపించలేదంటే నేను ఎకానమీ రాయట్లేదు, సోది రాస్తున్నా అని అర్థం. వెరీ సింపుల్. ఇఫ్ ఐ హ్యావ్ టు ఫీల్ యువర్ రైటింగ్ ఎకానమీ, ఇట్ హ్యాస్ టు బి సబ్స్టాన్షియేటెడ్ విత్ డేటా. Now apart from this, I can also have various forms of representation of data. That could be bar graph, that could be pie chart, that could be line diagrams. I can use any of these creative methodologies for me to represent the data when I am writing in economy. ఎకానమీలో అది రాసేటప్పుడు చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ అమ్మ, దయచేసి దాన్ని మెయింటైన్ చేయండి అట్ ఎనీ కాస్ట్. అట్ ఎనీ కాస్ట్ అంటే ఇంకా అట్ ఎనీ కాస్ట్. ద థర్డ్ ఆస్పెక్ట్ ఇన్ ఎకానమీ ఎనీ గివెన్ డే ఈజ్ గవర్నమెంట్ మెషర్స్. వాడు అడిగినా అడగకపోయినా దయచేసి గవర్నమెంట్ మెజర్స్ రాయండి. అగ్రికల్చర్ మీద క్వశ్చన్ నడబడితే అగ్రికల్చర్కి సంబంధించిన స్కీమ్స్ రాస్తారు, అన్ని ఎవ్వడు ఆపడు. ఇండస్ట్రీ, ఎంఎస్ఎంఈ, రైట్, జీడిపి, infrastructure, logistics. For every component of my economy, I have some measure being taken. And when I have that measure being taken for every component of my economy, I will have to imperatively incorporate that aspect into my answer. ఖచ్చితంగా నేను ఆన్సర్లో రాయాల్సిందే, రాసి తీరాల్సిందే, దయచేసి రాయండి. At any cost. Take this as a metric when I am writing my economy answer. What is the simple thing that you can do, my dear? Keep your syllabus. For every syllabus point, you collect some 6 data points and you write some measures taken by India. సరిపోద్ది. మనకు ఒక సిలబస్ ఉందా? ఆ సిలబస్ లైన్ ఒకటి ఉంటుందా? In that every topic you kindly do this exercise. Rest everything will fall in the place. That's with respect to economy. What is with respect to some subject like environment? Now people keep talking about environment. We have a lot of things with respect to environment going on, right? Now when we look at environment as a subject, this is one such subject which demands you to state a lot of current affairs when you are writing an answer. ఎందుకంటే what is with environment, my dear? Every day something or the other is going on. Every day somebody or the other is speaking about some aspects of environment, be it pollution, be it waste management, be it climate change, be it biodiversity. In any of these aspects, what you have, something being spoken, something being developed, something being written, something being criticized at any cost with respect to environment. So current affairs will play a very important role when you are writing an answer in environment. The second aspect again per se, data. Data is compulsory. Maps compulsory. Compulsory, my dear, no other go. Compulsory. రామ్సార్ సైట్స్, వెట్లైన్స్ అడిగినా నువ్వు 100 గీయక్కర్లా, 4-5 చూపిస్తే సరిపోద్ది. Right? Biodiversity. What is the map that I can put for biodiversity? You simply show some animals and some vegetation. Now what is that biodiversity map that you can be ready with? Show some examples. What is the endemic species here? Kashmiri stag. Yes. Now what is the some species here? Lion. Right. What is some important species here? Tiger. What is some endemic species here or some important species here? Rhino. Are you understanding? Now, what is some important aspects with respect to Western Ghats? I know this is known for evergreen vegetation. What is important here? I know here I have Sundarbans, here Bitarkanika, here Koringa, here Pichavaram. All of these are what? Mangroves. Antena. I am simply showing the biodiversity map of India. That is representing some animals, representing some vegetation, representing some important species like mangroves. సరిపోద్దా? బ్రహ్మాండంగా. ఎగ్జామినర్ ఇంప్రెస్ అవుతాడా? ఖచ్చితంగా అవుతాడు. నీకోసం ఒక పూలమాల కూడా తీసుకొస్తాడు. ఫిక్స్డ్. So what you got to understand here, there are some things which you cannot avoid maths. The third aspect with respect to environment, again which is important, is writing government measures. Why should we write government measures when it comes to environment or when it comes to India? Is very clear that that will fundamentally show some environmental consciousness to the examiner. Environmental consciousness with respect to the government. That's more important whenever I'm talking about these aspects, right? So this is one more component which is important. Now you want to do something extra in environment, you can show some flow charts. Environment is one such subject which can definitely have some flowcharts at any cost, right? So you can also bring in the dimensions of environment, current affairs, data, maps, government measures and some flowcharts. Now coming to one of the most important subjects but neglected subjects, that is science and tech, right? Most of us are engineers. కాదమ్మా ఎంతమంది ఇంజనీర్లు క్లాస్లో? యూ షుడ్ బి ప్రౌడ్. ఏం సాధించామని దించండి, ఎందుకు చెప్తున్నారు? రైట్, ప్రౌడ్ అనగానే ఎస్ ఐఎమ్ ఆల్సో అన్ ఇంజనీర్, డోంట్ వరీ. ఠీక్. నౌ వీ ఇంజనీర్ సమ్హౌ టేక్ దిస్ సబ్జెక్ట్ ఫర్ గ్రాంటెడ్. గ్రాంటెడ్ ఎట్లా అంటే, మనం పుట్టిన వెంటనే హాస్పిటల్లో అదేదో సినిమాలో వాడు బటన్ ఒత్తుతుంటే ఈ పక్క మనిషి బ్రహ్మానందం బటన్ ఒత్తుతుంటాడు చూడు, వాడు ఇలా పైకి లేసి మనం ఏదో అలా పుట్టాం అనుకుంటాం. But this is one subject which is going to determine marks in GS3, as well as when it comes to UPSC, you know, it is paper 5. Right? Now, please center this around concepts. When I say center this around concepts, what do I mean by that centering this around concepts is, if I am writing a question on nanotech, bring in the essence of nano. If I am writing a question on quantum computing, bring in the essence of quantum computing. Or if I am writing some question with respect to robotics, space. Now in any of these technologies, what we think is current affairs, but please understand there is a static basis and there is a conceptual basis to this. And please ensure that we bring in that conceptual basis for that particular subject at any cost. One. The second most important aspect is make your answer more application oriented, not theoretical orientation. Because science and technology we only learn just to apply, and ensure that we are bringing in that application aspect at any cost. Whenever I am bringing these applications, please kindly substantiate with respect of examples. Okay, gallo raayakunda దయచేసి కొన్ని ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ రాయండి విత్ రెస్పెక్ట్ టు అప్లికేషన్ ఓరియంటేషన్ అండ్ అప్లికేషన్ ఆస్పెక్ట్. అపార్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ దట్, ద థర్డ్ ఆస్పెక్ట్ ఈస్ కరెంట్ అఫైర్స్. కరెంట్ అఫైర్స్ అన్నది ఏం లేదమ్మా ఇందులో. అట్ ద ఎండ్ ఆఫ్ ద డే, వాట్ ఈజ్ మై లేటెస్ట్ డెవలప్మెంట్స్ విత్ రెస్పెక్ట్ టు దిస్ ఆస్పెక్ట్. For every technology, I have some latest developments. Be it space, be it nano, be it robotics, be it AI. You name it, you have latest development. So mention or bring in that perspective of latest development with respect to that particular technology or that particular aspect of science. And the fourth aspect is what? Government measures. Right? ఎందుకంటే again government measures are important to be mentioned here, because we will have to show that country is focusing on science and tech. Is country focusing on science and tech? Emma, what do you think? Right? No sir, we have some visionary leaders being present in the country, so definitely country is focusing on science and tech. Is it so? How many of you say that India is fantastically focusing on science and tech? Focusing? No. You people are playing safe, right? ఎందుకు వచ్చిన తలనొప్పరా వీడితో, ఏం చెప్పినా ఉల్టా చెప్తాడు అన్నట్టు. I would say it is not focusing, because what is my research expenditure, my dear? 0.6% of my GDP. If India was actually focusing, we would have had more expenditure on research. I would say India is not focusing because our global innovation index rank is 38. Now, we are the largest populated country. We have more than 35% of the people studying STEM branches, that is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM branches. But our global innovation index is what? 38. And I would say the proportion of women scientists in India is hardly 14%. అంటే ఇప్పుడు 100 scientists ఉంటే దాంట్లో women are how much? 14. Now all of these are showing what India is not focusing. But the same data can show that India is focusing. How? Now once upon a time we used to spend only 0.2% of GDP on research, now we are spending 0.6. Once upon a time our global innovation index was 80, today we are 38. Once upon a time the women proportion was hardly 3%, today it is 14%. So in ade data to I can show that it is focusing or it is not focusing. Is it clear? Right? So I will definitely have to bring in the aspects of government measures. And one small additional factor that I would always love to add in science and technology whenever I am writing is some schematic diagrams. Schematic diagrams. Right? Now I'll share one funny incident. Okay? So last year I was taking this strategic revision for APPSC. Group 1, right? In that I teach science and technology. So when I was teaching science and tech there, I was telling these components. And we have something called as in-class answer writing. We make students write answer there and then itself. So one candidate was writing answer, then after the session that person got that answer to me. Now in that what he has drawn, వాడి ఆన్సర్లో ఆ బొమ్మ ఉంది. నాకు అర్థం కాల, రైట్? ఎందుకంటే దానికి మినిమం డిగ్రీ ఉండాలి, అది అర్థం అవ్వాలి. బాబు నాన్న ఏంటిది? సార్ యూ ఓన్లీ టోల్డ్ డ్రా స్కిమాటిక్స్, దిస్ ఇస్ క్వాంటమ్ కంప్యూటర్. కంప్యూటర్ అంటారు. స్కిమాటిక్ అంటే ఇలాంటివి కాదమ్మా. వెన్ ఐ సే స్కిమాటిక్స్, వాట్ ఫండమెంటలీ ఇట్ మీన్స్ ఐ విల్ హ్యావ్ టు షో సమ్ ఫ్లో చార్ట్స్. Now for suppose what can I do? Now same thing I can do something better. What I will say? I will simply say computer. Yes. Superposition and entanglement makes it what? Quantum computer. Ardhamainda? This is a schematic. Now what is the examiner understanding from this? He knows that I know how this quantum computer working. నేను నిజంగా దాంతో వర్క్ చేయలేదమ్మా, బట్ ఎగ్జామినర్ విల్ అండర్స్టాండ్, ఓహో నార్మల్ కంప్యూటర్ వర్క్స్ ఆన్ mathematical principles, my quantum computer works on principles of physics. And these are fundamentally working on the principle of superpositioning as well as what? Entanglement. And I also know there is principle of coherence. I am not writing that because there is shortage of space. But two main principles of quantum computing is what? One is superposition, the other one is entanglement. And when I have these additional components to a computer, that becomes quantum computer. Ardhamainda? Are you understanding? Now for suppose if I am showing some nanotech. Now whenever I am writing on nanotech, I know there are different ways of making nanomaterials. One is something called as top down material, the other one is bottom up. Top down ante breaking a bigger thing into smaller. That is a schematic. If I have to show bottom up, I will show something bigger. That means when I add smaller components and make a nanomaterial, that becomes bottom up. So what do I mean by schematics is these basic schematics will have to be positioned whenever you are writing science and tech. There is one more subject here, that is disaster management. Now in disaster management, what is to be added? First is data. Now when I say data, extremely important for every disaster. Now for example, if you look at the disaster profile of India per se, we can say that 86% of Indian region is affected by at least one disaster. 12% of India is susceptible to landslides, 12% is susceptible to flood, 68% is susceptible to drought, 60% is susceptible to earthquakes, and 76% of Indian coast is susceptible to cyclones. and 85% of the disasters are affecting women and children comparatively more than men. Inte. Idanta, what is this telling me? What is the disaster profile of my country? So first primacy that's going to be in disaster management is data on different disasters. One. The second important aspect is recent examples. For example, if they are asking a disaster on urban fire, recently Delhi hotel, that's an example of what? Urban fire. Or if they are asking me something on tsunami, Russia, Japan, if they are asking something on earthquake, I know last year Myanmar, Thailand, Russia, right, all of these were there. So fundamentally what I need to be ready with my recent examples on disaster management. The third important dimension that I will have to bring in when I am writing disaster management is maps. At any cost I will have to bring in maps. I will have to draw some maps. Now what is the map that I will have to represent? If I say floods, urban floods, what can you draw? Pratidigi. Now what is urban flood, my dear? Flood in urban region. Where all urban regions are there? Why only Chennai? You have something? Even sambandham unda mana? Okay, Chennai. Chennai, Hyderabad lo ఉండవా? ఇంకో నెల ఆగు, నువ్వు అక్కడి నుంచి బండి వేసుకురావాల్సిన అక్కడ కూర్చో, ఇక్కడ తేలుతావు. That's what I'm telling you. Now we have floods in Hyderabad, Bengaluru, Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi. Now don't write Bihar. Urban floods ki Bihar ki sambandham లేదు. Bihar and రాసావా దొరికిపోతుంది. Now when I say normal floods, Bihar, Assam, right? These regions are known for normal floods where you see the changing nature of the river course that is seen to be existing. So I definitely have to represent maps. And more importantly, again, government measures. I will have to bring in government measures whenever I am talking about disasters at any cost. Is this clear? Right? So that is with respect to disaster. Now one last chutkusa subject that is present here, that is internal security. More or less internal security will also have these components. Now when I am talking about internal security, please understand this has to be solution oriented when I am writing. One. The second thing that you will have to remember here is data, maps, examples, and definitely government measures. But one secret component of internal security always is the dynamism. When I say dynamism, now for suppose if I am writing a question on per se left wing extremism, right? Left wing extremism, that is what? Naxalism. Now how can I show this dynamism? Very simple map will be there. I see once upon a time we were having something called as Red Corridor. After Samadhan strategy of the government, what has happened? What has happened after Samadhan strategy? It started dividing into pockets. Not only pockets, but what has happened, one dynamism that you see is the tri-junction operations which are seen to be happening with respect to Naxalism. For example, when you look at one of the very famous tri-junction is Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. That is a tri-junction where you see Naxalites operating. But is this relevant after March 31st, 2026? No. What is the official report after March 31st, 2026? They say we have eliminated left-wing extremism. Are you understanding this, right? So whenever you are writing internal security any cost, please bring in the dynamism, right? Dynamism with respect to the methodology of operations, dynamism with respect to the stakeholders involved, dynamism with respect to area of operation to a larger extent. In all of these aspects, you will have to definitely bring in this dynamism, right? So these are the different aspects to be written with respect to GS1 and GS3 in specific with respect to the subjects, right? So more or less my answer writing, if I have to summarize, one, number of parts, two, kindly revise. Two, it is with respect to space allocation. Three, with respect to subheadings. Four, with respect to structure, basic structure, components, that is microstructure. And whenever I want to stick to the relevance, I'll have to know the theme, dimension, content, right? I think we have written this. Now I have gone subject specific. Now one small thing that I have to discuss here before I wrap up the session is, what is the basic difference of answer writing between UPSC and APPSC? See, because there is no better person than me, because I am a ranker in both. I am a ranker of UPSC, I am a ranker of APPSC group 1. Rendu నేను ర్యాంకరే. సో రెండింటి గురించి బ్రహ్మాండంగా మాట్లాడగలను, రైట్? Now if I have to tell you what is the difference between writing of APPSC or UPSC, this is a game of quality. This is a game of quality and quantity. Pakka, right? Okay, some TGPSC listening to me, I will include that also. Otherwise, they will bifurcate me. I know. Okay. Right? Now, somebody writing TGPSC also, it's a game. Okay. Somebody from Karnataka, somebody writing KPSC, they will say you're doing injustice to me. Okay. Anybody from Bihar? Yemma. Right? So, quality and quantity, it's a game when I'm writing in state services. The second aspect here is that what is prioritized here is relevance. Here, what is prioritized here is relevance along with the necessary expansion. నాకు రెండు కావాలి. నేను ఊరికే వాడి మొహం మీద 2 పాయింట్లు ఇసురుతానంటే జరగదు. When I am writing UPSC, for a 10 marker, I need 12 points. For a 15 marker, I need 15 to 18 points. Nobody would have told you this, but please remember that is going to work out. అది జరుగుతుంది, బ్రహ్మాండంగా పనిచేస్తుంది. If you are writing APPSC or TGPSC, right? ఎన్ని పాయింట్లు అనుకున్నా? ర్యాండమ్. మన ఇష్టం సార్, వచ్చినవన్నీ రాద్దాం. పోయేదేముంది? పోయేదేం లేదు, రాయండి, మార్కులు రావు అంతే. అర్థమైందా గేమ్? ఫర్ ఎ 10 marker I need to have 15 to 18 points at any cost. Now for a 10 marker, how many sides I am writing here? Enamma? 2 sides. For a 15 marker I am writing 3 sides. దీని మీద 15 markers ఉండేది అన్ని 10 markers, 3 sides. Now somebody who is very critical about my strategy, they will say, ఒరే 15 questions ఉంటాయి, 3 పేజీలు రాయమంటున్నావు, 45 పేజీలు ఉంటుంది. ఏపీపీఎస్సి బుక్లెట్లో 44 ఉంటాయి, ఇంకొక పేజీ ఎక్కడ రాయమంటావు? రాయదు. What I will tell now, Simple management that I would tell for this is, for 13 questions write 3 sides. So what is going to happen? 39. For last 2 questions write 2.5. అంతే కదా, 2.5 అంటే ఏంటి, ఆల్మోస్ట్ 3. This will become what? 5. How much it is? 44. Right? In TGPSC we don't have this issue. They are more organized. వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తారు, క్వశ్చన్ నెంబర్ వేస్తారు, 3 పేజీలు ఇస్తారు, నువ్వు రాస్తే రాయి, ముగ్గులు వేస్తే ముగ్గులే, నీ ఇష్టం. బట్ యూ హ్యావ్ అలొకేటెడ్ 3 sides for TGPSC, but that is not the case in APPSC. రైట్? వాళ్ళ మనసు చాలా పెద్దది. ఇలా రెస్ట్రిక్షన్స్ ఎందుకు, నీకు ఇష్టం వచ్చినని రాయి అని, దే జస్ట్ గివ్ యూ ది బుక్లెట్ అండ్ యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ టు డిసైడ్. నువ్వు డిసైడ్ చేసేది ఏమి ఉండదమ్మా అందులో. నేను అనేది ఏంటంటే, దిస్ వుడ్ బి అన్ ఆప్టిమైజ్డ్ స్ట్రాటజీ వెన్ ఇట్ కమ్స్ టు ద స్టేట్ సర్వీసెస్. ఈజ్ దిస్ క్లియర్? లైక్ బేసిక్ డిఫరెన్స్ బిట్వీన్ UPSC అండ్ APPSC. కామన్ ఏంటి? ఆన్సర్ రైటింగ్, స్ట్రక్చర్, రెలవెన్స్, కాంపోనెంట్స్, సబ్ హెడింగ్స్, డైమెన్షనల్ అనాలిసిస్, ఇవన్నీ కామన్. అన్నిటికీ మించి వాట్ ఈస్ ద మోస్ట్ కామన్ థింగ్ దట్ యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ టు రిమెంబర్ బట్ మెనీ పీపుల్ మిస్ ఇస్ సిలబస్. నేను ఒక సూత్రం చెప్పి ఆపేస్తానమ్మా ఈ సెషన్. ఐ నో యూ మస్ట్ బీ హంగ్రీ, రైట్? ఒక్కొక్క మొహాలు చూస్తే ఇంకా గ్లోబల్ హంగర్ ఇండెక్స్లో నేనే టాప్ అయిపోయేటట్టు చూస్తున్నారు, రైట్? అరే, అండ్ సమ్ ఆఫ్ యూ ఆర్ లుకింగ్ అట్ ది వాచ్, యూఆర్ ఇండికేటింగ్, బాబు ఏంటిది అయ్యింది, వదులుతా, లాస్ట్ 5 నిమిషాలు, అంతకు మించి ఎక్స్ట్రా తీసుకోండి. ప్లీజ్ రిమెంబర్, I will have to write normal content. What many people target? They want to write super content. But there is nothing like super content, because any super content is abnormal content. Right? అలా సరదాగా రోడ్డు మీద నడుచుకుంటూ వెళ్తే, have you ever seen that bookstall being vacant? ఆడ బుక్ స్టాల్ ఉంది కదా, అది ఏంటది? వికాస్ బుక్ స్టాల్. హ్యావ్ యు ఎవర్ సీన్ దట్ బీయింగ్ వేకెంట్? ఇంపాసిబుల్. వై? పీపుల్ ఆర్ సర్చింగ్ ఫర్ సూపర్ కంటెంట్. బట్ వాట్ వీ షుడ్ ఎంఫసైజ్ ఇన్ రైటింగ్ అండ్ ఆన్సర్? నార్మల్ కంటెంట్. బికాస్ దేర్ ఇస్ నథింగ్ లైక్ సూపర్ కంటెంట్, దేర్ ఇస్ నథింగ్ లైక్ extraordinary content, because anything extraordinary is abnormal. One. The second thing that you will have to remember is, what is my normal content? That content which I am trying to derive from syllabus. Endukante the only common document between you and examiner is syllabus. Now you say, sir, for quality I read Lakshmikant. Now are you sure that examiner is also reading Lakshmikant? He might be part of Constituent Assembly and now he is evaluating your paper. Who knows? Maybe he was freedom fighter, he is evaluating your history paper. Who knows? The only document which is common between us and examiner is what, my dear? Syllabus. And నేను ఎన్ని పదాలు సిలబస్ నుంచి వాడితే నాకు అన్ని మార్కులు. I can definitely say I have mastered this particular art of drawing answer from సిలబస్. నాకు ఏం తెలియదు అనుకో, ఆ సబ్జెక్టుకి సంబంధించిన సిలబస్ 4-5 పాయింట్లు రాసేసి బయటకు వస్తాను, నాకు ఖచ్చితంగా తెలుసు ఎగ్జామ్లో మినిమం 2 మార్కులు వేస్తాడు. దాట్ ఈస్ ద స్ట్రెంగ్త్ ఆఫ్ సిలబస్ అండ్ ఐఎమ్ నాట్ జోకింగ్ అట్ దిస్ జంక్చర్ ఎట్ ఆల్ ఆన్ దిస్ ఆస్పెక్ట్. వన్ మోర్ లాస్ట్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ దట్ యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ టు రిమెంబర్, వై ఐ సే సూపర్ కంటెంట్ ఈజ్ అబ్నార్మల్ కంటెంట్ ఈజ్, what is the average age of somebody who is evaluating our paper? ఎంత ఉంటుంది అనుకుంటున్నారు సరదాగా? See, these people are retired and tired, రెండు. రైట్? వాళ్ళ జీవితంలో ఏమేమి చూడాలో అన్నీ చూసేసి, చూడ్డానికి ఏం మిగలకుండా, ఏం చేయాలో అర్థం కాకుండా వచ్చి నీ పేపర్ చూస్తున్నాడు. ఊహించు ఫస్ట్. Second, say if they are not retired and tired, definitely they are what, my dear? 50 plus. Now somebody who is 50 plus will definitely have all the family burdens on his head or her head. Now probably before evaluating a paper, he had a fight with his wife. And in the process, wife hit him with some ginne or utensil on his head. Now when he is evaluating a paper, suddenly the noppu vachindi. ఆ కోపం అంతా ఎక్కడ చూపిస్తాడు? అసలు అలా జరుగుతుందా? జరుగుతుంది. వాడు మనిషే, నువ్వు మనిషే, నేను మనిషి. ప్లీజ్ రిమెంబర్ మై డియర్, మేక్ ది బిజినెస్ ఆఫ్ ది ఎగ్జామినర్ ఈజీ. ఇది గుర్తుపెట్టు. హూ కెన్ ఇంప్రెస్ ఎగ్జామినర్? హూ మేక్స్ ద జాబ్ ఆఫ్ ది ఎగ్జామినర్ ఈజీ. నేను సింపుల్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ చెప్తానమ్మా. ఎగ్జామినర్కి కావాల్సింది ఆ 1000 రూపాయలు. వాడికి వచ్చేది ఎంత? వెన్ హీస్ ఎవాల్యుయేటింగ్ ఎ పేపర్, హీ వాంట్స్ దట్ 1000 rupees. Now just imagine he is taking 45 minutes to get this 1000 rupees and he is taking 15 minutes to get 1000 rupees. Who will be rewarded? Human psychology, forget about human psychology, Indian psychology. మనకంతా ఏంటి? రూపాయి పెడితే 10 రూపాయలు రావాలి. అంతేనా మన బిజినెస్? 15 నిమిషాల్లో వాడికి 1000 రూపాయలు రావడం ఇంపార్టెంట్, 45 నిమిషాల్లో 1000 రూపాయలు రావడం ఇంపార్టెంట్. 15 minutes అంటే, డోంట్ యు థింక్ ఇన్ సేమ్ 45 minutes he'll get 3000 rupees? Who will get more marks? This person. Now when can I make the examiner evaluate my paper in 15 minutes? When I make my paper easy. చాలా మంది ఏమనుకుంటారు, మెయిన్స్ ఎగ్జామినేషన్ అంటే నేను ఏదో రాసేయాలి, ఏదో పొడి చేయాలి. ఏం పొడి చేయదు ఉండదమ్మా అక్కడ. సింపుల్ కంటెంట్, అండ్ ఐ ఆల్వేస్ సే సింప్లిసిటీ ఈస్ ది అల్టిమేట్ సొఫిస్టికేషన్ ఇన్ ఆన్సర్ రైటింగ్. The simpler my answer is, the easier is the process of evaluation and more the marks that I get at any cost. ఈ ఒక్క సూత్రం గుర్తుపెట్టుకొని I am telling you my dear, there is nobody who is going to stop you from not clearing mains at any cost. It worked out for me, it worked out for thousands of my students. I can definitely tell you it will work out for you also. I will say mains is the easiest stage to clear. ఎందుకు? It's a process of impressing somebody. నువ్వు ఎంత బాగా ఇంప్రెస్ చేస్తే అన్ని మార్కులు. ఎలా ఇంప్రెస్ చేయాలి? మేక్ ఇట్ ఈజీ. అండ్ ఇంకొకటి, ప్లీజ్ డోంట్ ప్లే విత్ ది ఈగో ఆఫ్ ది ఎగ్జామినర్. నేను కాబోయే IAS ఆఫీసర్, నేను కాబోయే డెప్యూటీ కలెక్టర్, రైట్, అండ్ ఐ నో మోర్ దెన్ ఎగ్జామినర్. కొంతమంది ఉంటారు, రైట్, గ్రహాంతర వాసులు కొంతమంది. వాట్ డూ దే ఫోకస్? దే ఫోకస్ ఆన్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ బాక్స్ నాలెడ్జ్. ఇంకెట్లంటే, నౌ ఇఫ్ ఐఎమ్ టెల్లింగ్ సంథింగ్ సింపుల్, దే టెల్ నీకేం రాదు, వేస్ట్. దే విల్ డంప్ ది పేపర్ విత్ అన్నెసెసరీ కంటెంట్. ఎందుకు? ఎక్కువ పుస్తకాలు చదివారు, దాన్ని ఎక్కడో చోట పెట్టాలి, పెట్టకపోతే ఫ్రస్ట్రేషన్ వస్తుంది, పేపర్లో పెడతాడు, ఎగ్జామ్లో గుడ్డి సున్నా పెట్టి పంపిస్తారు. Because you are playing with the ego of the examiner. 50 సంవత్సరాల పైన నిండిన మనిషిని పేపర్ ఎవాల్యుయేట్ చేస్తున్నాడంటే వాడి ఈగోను హర్ట్ చేయకండి. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ లైక్ వెన్ యూ హర్ట్ ది ఈగో ఆఫ్ యువర్ పేరెంట్స్ కదా. యూ ట్రై హర్టింగ్. ఐఎమ్ టెల్లింగ్ యూ, నేను కొన్ని వందల మంది క్లాస్ చెప్తా ఒకే రోజులో. బట్ వెన్ ఐ గో బ్యాక్ హోమ్, I could never dare to open my mouth in front of my mother. ఎందుకు? ఏదన్నా మాట్లాడి ఈగో హర్ట్ అయిందా, షీ విల్ ఇమ్మీడియట్లీ టెల్, నీకేం తెలియదు, నోరు మూసుకో. ఒక UPSC ర్యాంకరు, ఒక గ్రూప్ 1 ర్యాంకరు, గ్రూప్ A సర్వీస్ క్యాండిడేట్, కొన్ని వేల మందికి, వందల మందికి పాఠాలు చెప్తుంటాను, కానీ మా అమ్మ ఏమంటుంది, నీకేం తెలియదు, నోరు మూసుకో. Same thing will be spoken by your examiner also. When you write extraordinary content, he will say, నీకేం తెలీదు, మళ్ళా రాసుకో, నోరు మూసుకో కాదు, మళ్ళా రాసుకో. And the funda is very simple, my dear, for the examiner at any cost. When the examiner does not know examiner considers that to be not correct. వాడికి తెలీదు అంటే అది తప్పు. You cannot expect examiner to sit and learn what you have written. And 99% of the people who come out and say that I have written fantastic mains but I did not make it into the interview list are all those people who are writing extraordinary content and expecting the examiner to learn. వాడు నేర్చుకోడు, వాడు మారడు, వాడికి తెలీదు. Not knowing is not correct. అంతే, నాకు తెలియదు కాబట్టి అది తప్పు. నువ్వేం ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నావు? తెలుసుకుంటాడులే, ఎందుకు తెలుసుకుంటాడా? So please remember that not knowing is not correct. Don't play with the ego of the examiner, and more importantly, make the business of the examiner easy. And trust me, when you make the business of the examiner easy, he will make your life beautiful. Otherwise, మీకు తెలుసు, మళ్ళా దులుపుకోవాలి, మళ్ళా లేయాలి, మళ్ళా రాయాలి. Is this clear? Right? So that is it from my side with respect to answer writing. Now, any questions, anything you want to ask? ఏమన్నా questions? No? నువ్వు వదలరా బాబు, మేము పోయి తినాలి అక్కడ. ఈరోజు ఏంటి, మండే? ఓకే. సండే నిన్న చికెన్ అయిపోయింది హాస్టల్లో, మళ్ళీ వెడ్నెస్డే ఎప్పుడో పెడతారు. రైట్? ఎనీ డౌట్స్? That's it from my side for today, my dear. Thank you. All the very best.